Welcome students to this mathematics session for grade 8. Today we are going to continue with the same topic of AGCF and factorization of algebraic expressions. In this lesson we are going to learn firstly how to factorize expressions with negative common factor. Secondly, how to factorize expressions with compound factors. And lastly, we are going to learn how to factorize expressions by using the grouping method. Right? So we start with factorization of expressions with negative common factor. The first example, the question says factorize by taking the highest negative factor outside. First part, we have negative 2x minus 10. How do we attempt this type of question? Let us see. Well, the first step is to take this negative sign outside a pair of brackets. Right? What is the term which is close to this negative sign? It is 2x. 2x is simply 2 times x. Right? Now, you have to be very careful here. Since we have taken out the negative sign, and here we have negative, right? This sign here is going to change to positive. Why it is going to change to positive? Because you already know from your knowledge of integers from grade 7, you already know that minus times plus gives minus, right? Since we have a negative outside the bracket, it is minus times plus, and this is going to give minus, right? Okay, this is why we change this sign to plus. Okay, when do we change the sign? When do we change the sign? Simply when you remove negative sign outside. Right? Now, what is the last term? It is 10. And you already know in expanded form by using prime division, 10 is simply 2 times 5. Right? So we continue. The negative remains outside the bracket. Okay? Now, here you have 2 times x. Here you have 2 times 5. Which number or which letter has appeared twice? It is simply the number 2. Here you have 2. Here also you have 2. Meaning the 2 is common. So it is a common factor here. So we have to take it outside the bracket. So we cut the 2 and we take it outside the bracket. So we are left with x plus 5. Right? So this is it. We have been able to factorize by taking the highest negative factor outside the bracket. Okay? Let us see a second example. I take another color for it. Right? The second part is negative 4 plus 6x. Right? What is the first step? The first step is to take this negative sign outside a pair of brackets. Right? What is 4? 4 in expanded form. It is simply 2 times 2. Right? Now, here you have a plus. What do we do with this sign? We change the sign. Why do we change the sign? Because we have taken out a minus sign outside the bracket. Right? So, the positive sign changes to negative. Right? And what is the last term? It is 6x. 6x, you already know it is 2 times 3 times x. So we continue. The negative remains outside the bracket. Now, which number or which letter is common? It is the number 2 which is common. So we keep the 2 outside the pair of brackets because it is common. So we are left with 2 minus 3 times x is simply 3x. Okay? It's quite easy, but you have to be careful when you remove the negative sign outside the brackets. Okay? So, let us try a second example. Again the same question, factorize by taking the highest negative factor outside. The first part we have negative x squared minus 3x. Right? What is the first step? The first step is to take this negative sign outside a pair of brackets. Right? Then what do? We consider x squared. It is simply x times x. Right? And what do we do with this sign? Since we have taken a negative outside this sign, we have to change it. The negative becomes positive because minus times plus gives minus. Right? And what is the last term? It is 3x. 3x, you already know it is 3 times x. Okay? We continue. The negative sign remains outside. Now we have to take out the common factor, which is x is common. Then what are we going to be left with? Simply x plus 3, right? A second example, we have negative 5x squared plus 15x. The first step is to take the negative sign outside a pair of brackets. Okay? Then we consider 5x squared. 5x squared in expanded form, it is simply 5 times x times x. Right? Now what about the second sign plus here? What do we do with it? Since we have taken a negative sign outside, what do we do with the sign? We change the sign, plus becomes minus, right? And what about the last term? 15x in expanded form, 3 times 5 times x. We continue. The negative sign is outside. Now we take out the common factor. Which number is common? 5 here and 5 here, so it is common. Then we have also x, which is common. So we are left with x minus 3. Okay, this is how we factorize these type of expressions, by taking the highest negative common factor outside the pair of brackets. I hope you have understood this type of factorization. We now move on with compound factors. Well, in the case of compound factors, we are going to have an expression which is common. What is common? We have an expression which is going to be common, right? So let us see the first example. We have 2 times x plus 5 plus p times x plus 5, right? Now, which expression is appearing twice? We have here x plus 5, and here also we have x plus 5. So we say that x plus 5 is common. Whenever we have something which is common, what do we do with it? You already know. We have to write it outside a pair of brackets. Yes or no? The common factor has to be outside the pair of bracket. So here the common factor is x plus 5. So x plus 5 should be outside. Since it is an expression, we have to write it in terms of brackets as well. Okay, so we are left with 2 plus p That's it. We have factorized this type of expression using compound factors, right? Just remember, for the case of compound factors, you're going to have an expression which is common. Let me write the common a bit better. Let me write this a bit better. Yes, for the case of compound factors, we are going to have an expression which is common, right? So let us take the second part of this example. We have a times 2x minus 3 minus b times 2x minus 3, right? Now, which expression is appearing twice? Here you have 2x minus 3. Here also you have 2x minus 3. So 2x minus 3 is the common factor here. And you already know common factor has to be outside a pair of bracket. And what is the common factor here? 2x minus 3 with the bracket, of course. So we are left with a minus b. That's it, right? So we move on with a second example on compound factors, right? The first part is s times a plus b plus a plus b. Right, you have to understand something here, right? Whenever you don't have anything in front of a bracket, you have to write down 1. Okay? Now we identify the compound factor, right? Which expression is appearing twice? Here you have a plus b. Here also you have a plus b. So a plus b is what we call the common factor. And common factor, they have to be outside a pair of bracket. Yes or no? Of course. So the common factor is a plus b. We write a plus b outside the pair of brackets. Now we are left with simply s plus 1, right? Let us see the second part. We have x times 2x minus 3 minus 2x minus 3. Again, we don't have anything before the second bracket here, so we have to write down 1, right? We observe that 2x minus 3 has been written twice, so 2x minus 3 is the common factor here. So common factors, they have to be outside a pair of bracket. And what is the common factor here? It is simply 2x minus 3. And in the second bracket, we are left with x minus 1. right? Compound factors is very easy in this chapter, right? Now the third type of factorization, which is very important to understand, is factorization of expressions by grouping, right? Well, let us see the first example. It says factorize completely. First part, we have ax plus ay plus bx plus by. So this expression has how many terms in all? It has 4 terms in all, right? So how do we factorize this type of expression? Let us see, right? We consider 2 terms at a time. We consider the first with the second. We consider the third term with the fourth term, right? Okay, so what do we do now? Well, we start with a pair of brackets. What is the first term? Ax. Ax is simply a times x, right? Then we have a plus. You insert your plus. What is the second term? Ay is simply a times y. Okay? Then you have a plus again. You write down your plus. Then you open a second pair of brackets. The third term is bx is simply b times x. Then you have plus, and the last term is by, which is b times y. So here what we have done, we have written the expression in expanded form, right? Now we have to continue. We have to observe the first pair of bracket, and we are going to observe the second pair of bracket later on, right? So let us start with the first pair of bracket. We have to identify the common factor. Which letter is appearing twice? We have the letter A. We have the letter A, which is appearing twice. So the letter A is the common factor, right? The letter A is what we call the common factor, right? So since it is common, you already know the letter A has to be outside a pair of bracket. All common factors, they have to be outside. So we are left with x plus y. Okay, now we continue. Since here you have plus, there is no problem when you have plus. You insert the plus as it is. Now we identify the common factor in the second pair of brackets. Which letter is common? Here you have B, here also you have B, meaning B is common, and you already know something which is common, it has to be outside. So the common factor for the second pair of bracket is B, so it has to be outside, right? Now we are left with x plus y, right? I hope you have understood this part. Okay, so we continue. Now this is step here. This is step here. We have just explained it in the previous example. It is simply compound factors. Why compound factors? Because you have x plus y which is appearing twice. It is an expression which is common. Okay, so we have to take out the expression outside a pair of bracket. Yes or no? X plus y, so it has to be outside. And we are left with A plus B. That's it. This is the answer. Right? I hope you have understood this first example on factorization by grouping. Let us take a second example on factorization by grouping. We have rs minus 5s plus 4r minus 20. Right? So the first step is to take two terms at a time and we write them in expanded form. Right? So let us do it. We write down in expanded form. The first term is rs. rs is simply r times s. You have minus, you insert your minus. Then we have 5s, simply 5 times s. Then we close the bracket because we have already taken the first two terms. Now you have a plus, you insert your plus. What about 4r in expanded form? It's 2 times 2 times r. Right? Now you have your minus, you insert your minus. What about 20? 20 is simply 2 times 2 times 5. Right? Now what do? We identify the common factor. In the first pair of bracket, which letter is common? It is the letter S, which is common. So we are left with R minus 5. Okay, we consider the second pair of brackets now. Here we have plus, insert the plus. Which number is common? Here we have 2 and 2. Here we have 2 and 2 as well. So 2 times 2. Here also we have 2 times 2, meaning 4 is common. So we are left with R minus 5. Right? And this is the case of compound factors where an expression is common. So the common expression R minus 5 has to be outside the pair bracket. So we are left with S plus 4. Right? I hope you have understood the second example as well. Right? So we move on with another example. Right, again the same question. It says factorize completely. First part, you have 7y minus 14z minus xy plus 2xz. Right? What do we do the first step? We write two terms in expanded form. The first term is 7y, so it is 7 times y, right? You have a minus here, insert your minus. Then you have 14z. 14z in expanded form, it's simply 2 times 7 times z. Right? So we close the bracket because we have already taken the first two terms. Now there is a minus. You insert your minus followed by the second pair of brackets. Right? Okay. The next term after the minus is xy. Is simply x times y. Right? Now you have to be very careful here. Since we have taken a minus sign outside the bracket. You remember the first type of factorization where we have taken a negative sign outside the bracket? What happens with the following sign? The following sign has to change. Positive becomes negative. Why do we change it? Because minus times minus is going to give you plus. Okay, we have seen this in the first type of factorization, yes or no? Okay, and the last term is 2xz is simply 2 times x times z. Right? So we continue. We take out the common factor now. In the first pair of brackets, which number is common? We have 7, which is common. So it has to be outside the pair of brackets. we are left with y minus 2z, right? You have minus, you insert your minus. We have to take out the common factor here also. You have x, which is common, so x has to be outside the pair of brackets. You are left with y minus, again, 2z, right? So what do we observe? Here we have y minus 2z. Here also we have y minus 2z. So it is an expression which is common. So we use compound factors. So this is common. And you already know all common factors, they have to be outside here. Right? So y minus 2z has to be outside. So we are left with 7 minus x. Okay, so this is it. Right? This example is very important because in this example we have taken negative sign outside the second pair of brackets. And whenever you take negative sign outside, the following sign is going to change. Right? Now let us see the second example. Right? We have x squared plus ax minus 5x minus 5a. Right? The first step is to write down in expanded form. So the first two terms, we have x squared plus ax. Right? Let me start it here. Right? X squared is simply x times x. You have plus, you insert your plus. Ax is simply a times x. That's it. The first bracket in expanded form. Now the next two terms, since you have a minus here, insert your minus. Then we are going to complete the second pair of bracket. Right? Third term is 5x. It's 5 times x, of course. Now be very careful. Since you have removed a negative sign outside, what happens to the next sign, which is after the negative? It has to change. Minus becomes plus, right? And the last term is 5a, is simply 5 times a. Right? So we continue. Now we take out the common factor, which is x. We are left with x plus a in the first pair of brackets, minus, insert your minus. We take out the common factor again for the second pair of brackets, which is 5. So we are left with x plus a again. Now if we observe Well, we have x plus a, x plus a. So x plus a is our common factor, and as you already know, common factors, they have to be outside. So x plus a is common. We are left with x minus 5, right? So this is it. Factorization by grouping, right? I hope you have understood these three types of factorization. Okay, so we end here, and do subscribe for this channel. Till then, see you next time for the incoming sessions. For the time being, take care and goodbye.